Mhm.
All right, you've got you. It's gonna be a full house today. We're gonna fling the door open and see of all these people rushing in. Look at that! I told you the waiting room was just jam packed, full of amazing people who wanted in here. So here we go. Let some more people in, and we'll get started as quickly as possible. Because I know I have to do a couple of announcements, but you all did not come to hear me talk. Maybe you did. I don't know. That would be nice. but but mostly I'm here today because I want to hear what Sheila has to say because we have her back because she's so popular and she was gracious enough to come back when we said, please come back. So I will introduce her more in just a minute, but letting a few more people in before I get going with sharing a couple of announcements. And then, as I said, we will quickly move right into other things because we don't want to spend too much time on this. But I do have a couple of really cool announcements. So, first of all, there we go. First of all, in case you forgot, you did land here in the Friday webinar series. I know you ended up in the right place. I have never had anybody say, I didn't know that's where I was. So I should stop even saying that. Anyway, more people running in. Okay, there we go. All right. So we do, as I said, today we have Sheila Fryback from the BAB group, and she is a return visitor. I just looking at the list, I'm pretty sure at least some of you were here the last time she was here. While she's talking later, I'm probably going to go and grab that link because we have old footage on the YouTube channel from when she was here last time. I'll try to go scrounge that up. I should have done that ahead of time, letting some more people in. All right, but we'll come back to Sheila in just 1 second, and she will tell you more about herself and everything going on. Just want to remind people, as I said, we do have a number of the replays of things, including last week's. If you missed last week's session with Cody Moyer, we had a great discussion. They used capstone programming with their at the beginning of a learner's journey at the institution. Really interesting conversation last week. So if you missed it, it is over there on the YouTube channel, and that one was sponsored by Harmonize. So I do want to thank them again for bringing Cody in to talk to us. Also, as I said, everything, all the replays, well, most of the replays are on USDLA.tv, easy to find. Make sure you subscribe while you're there so you don't miss out on anything. I said most of them. A few of our presenters have requested that we keep things in the membership site. So if you're not already a member, it's a great time to think about joining us because you will get access to additional content that we can't necessarily share the replays of. So if you miss something live, you can still go and grab it. Also, want to mention next week, not next week, the week after next, we're taking a little break next week. Week after next, we have Emily Thompson coming in. And what's special about this one, for those of you who have been here before, we often dedicate the first Friday of the month to one of the state chapters that's part of the USDLA family. And we are welcoming back the Missouri chapter. They took a little pause and now they're back. So Emily is here. She's from the Missouri chapter. So if you're in the Missouri area, you don't even have to technically be in Missouri. I say area. Um, and you want to talk to Emily about perhaps joining their chapter as well as being part of the USDLA family. She will be here, but she'll be here sharing some great information for you. So whether you're in the Missouri area or not, you don't want to miss it. She'll be here on April the 4th. All right. Also, you want to save the date. This one's a Wednesday, so it's a little different. On Wednesday, April 16th, we're going to be hosting a discussion. Our public policy group is going to be holding an open discussion. We've heard from many of you. We are a membership association. We listen. We listen to what all of you tell us and what you want to talk about and what you're concerned about. And so we wanted to provide everybody an opportunity to come in and have a chat about that. We also, you notice there's a survey link. I'll put that in the chat in just 1 second. If you haven't already taken the survey, it's very short. It's 7 questions. If you want to share some of your thoughts, concerns, questions, because again, just like today's session, we brought Sheila back because all of you said, bring Sheila back. So we do try to provide the best content for all of you based on your needs and preferences. So finally, do want to remind you that if you can make it to St. Louis in June 23rd to 26th is our national conference. It's going to be bigger and better this year than I think we've had in a long time. A lot of great events going on. And I do share with people, I know travel is a challenge for some people. We do also have a virtual option. If you go to the website, it tells you all of the things that are part of the virtual conference. You actually get some separate sessions that are webinar style, like we're doing today, but you also get access to a lot of the on-site content. Not everything, but a whole lot of interesting events. And we're going to even have some networking that we're going to open up before the conference to get everybody talking and get everybody together. A couple of ideas of what you'll get while you're there. We do have 4 featured speakers or keynote speakers. We have a lot of workshops this year, and these workshops are all included in the price. It's one of the most affordable. I do conferences all over the place. This is one of the best values I can say, because everything is included. You don't pay extra for any of the webinars or any of the workshops or anything like that. Obviously, lots of networking. It's a small event, so you could theoretically meet pretty much everybody there if you really hustled and tried to go around. It's not cast of thousands where you just kind of feel like you're going from session to session. So please consider it. Feel free to hang out after this session and talk to me if you have any questions, or just reach out to me, and any of us at USDLA are happy to answer your questions. I'm also, because I really like this group, I don't know, I feel extra warm and fuzzy today. I'm going to put later in the chat a discount code. So if you can come to the conference and you have not already registered for the conference, I will give you a discount code where you can get 10% off. So there you go. It's even more affordable. I just made it better. All right, finally, just want a huge thank you out to all of our friends and sponsors and everything. Please take a moment, as I always say, and look at the list. It's ever changing. We have some new people that have been added to the list recently. But all of these people help make these free webinars possible. So please, if you work with any of these people, reach out to them, say thank you, find out what's going on with them, let them know what's going on with you. Again, these are our platinum, gold, and silver sponsors, but we have a whole bunch of other people that we love and want to share a big thank you with. And so again, without reading through the entire list, I hope you get the idea that it runs the full gamut of hardware, software, all sorts of services. And so if you see names on here you're not familiar with, go check them out, find out what they do. All right, I think I've gotten all the key messages out there to you. I've gotten everybody in the door for you, Sheila. So I
Great.
think it's time to turn things over to you. So thank you for being with me
Awesome.
today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's always good to be back here. We always have a great group. And those of you who no, may have been to one of mine before. No, I don't like to preach from the PowerPoint. So I'm going to be throwing questions out there. I appreciate Valerie monitoring the chat area. So I encourage questions at any point in time. I don't want this to be static. I want it to be interactive. So we'll talk about some good things, and hopefully you'll have some takeaways at the end of all this. So what is the point today? What are we going to talk about? And for everyone that knows the design process, we know that it can take quite a while. It could be 6 months, 9 months, a year. And then you might have sometimes where somebody says to you, hey, we need to run this course in 8 weeks, so we need to do it. So how are you going to do it, and how are you going to do it well? So that's one of the things that we stumble with a lot in what I do as COO of the BAB group. I'm kind of like you though, where I also have the educator hat that I wear. So I started out that way. I've been teaching for 25 years in education. I've designed courses, I've curriculum development, teach online courses, and now running the company with helping institutions get a little smarter, maybe be able to bring things online effectively. But we work with them to do all these things. So as Valerie and I were kind of bouncing ideas, I'm like, what do I want to talk about? And I'm like, well, you know what? This is something that we see a lot and everybody struggles with. How are we going to do these things? So what are we talking about today? How to implement a fast, effective development process. It doesn't mean it's poor. It doesn't mean it's struggling with what you're doing. You're going to try to address those challenges of why speed and quality can go hand in hand, and what are those strategies to do it, and some tools that we're going to use to work on this. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And again, have questions, please shout them out as we're doing this, because I want to be able to have this be something that you can take away at the end. So again, here, the growing demand for online courses. This is not new to any of us here on this call. We all know that. Does everyone outside of our group probably know that? Some struggle with it, some try to fight with it, but we know it's there. The research is there, the documentation's there, the growth is there. So how are you going to do it well? We have that need for online and flexible and hybrid. Maybe you're updating existing courses. You had a hot rush for COVID. You're trying to make them better now. Maybe you're doing new programs as a result of what you're finding from your research for your school that you need to get people interested and engaged with it. But at the same time, you have the same problem with faculty workload. Faculty, hey, can you do this course and do this? Well, I've got 4 courses, I've got 2 on overload, and now you want me to design a course? How am I going to do this? So, again, like I said at the beginning, there's anywhere from, you could take 8 weeks to a year or more to design a course. And so, one of the first things I want to throw out there, just if we get somebody to respond, great. What kind of a typical timeline are all of you looking at when you look to design a course? Someone says to you, I need to do this. How much time are they giving you? And I'll pause just briefly. So my guess is it's going to be 1 year, 6 months, 9 months.
Yep, you got a six
Sometimes it
to
might
eighth
be
month
unlimited.
already. Look at that.
Yeah, yeah. And then, or the one, we want you to do it now, but it's not running for 2 years and then it gets back burnered on somebody. So these are the pitfalls that we deal with here. So as we look at that here for pitfalls, we want to do something faster because we want to get it to the market. We maybe want to do it faster because there's less time involved, there's less faculty demand to try to do this. But if you rush through it without a plan, without a strategy, without a process, you're going to have some of these pitfalls here. So what are these problems that probably many of you are very familiar with? Faster doesn't have to mean low quality. So again, it's how are you going to tackle it? If you're going to rush through it without a plan, I'm just going to quick do this. I'm going to throw these things together and I'm going to do this. And this is my course. Then when you get to teach it, you're probably going to find errors. There's going to be missing content. It's probably incomplete. Oh, I meant to put that in week 4 and I've got it here in week 2. Oh, I forgot to add that final project. Where is that assignment? These are the things that can happen when you're rushing. Are you building that engagement in there? Sometimes in a rush, we're just thinking about content. We're not thinking about how it's going to impact the students or how we can engage with them. And of course, accessibility and compliance. The biggest thing that you need to have there is you need to have strategic and structured planning. And that's kind of what we'll talk about a lot as we go through this. What is that structured approach to how to shrink that time down without losing the quality? And then as you look here, the speed and quality trade-off, you're going to have cost controls. You're going to be looking at accessibility. What rework is there as a result of these rushed efforts? And then what quality could you potentially be giving up just trying to quickly get something done without a plan? So we want to take a smart approach. And when I say smart approach, I say that you're building for speed and quality. What does that mean? And we'll dig into all these a lot more as we go through here, but as an overall focus, we're going to look at the backward design because it's smart and it's efficient and it makes sense. It's not just taking something, you're not just breaking up the textbook. If you have an 8-week course and a 16-week chapter book, you aren't saying 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. You're designing with purpose. So you're looking at a modular course design, meaning that you're taking the content and it's scalable. You're able to convert it from course to course, from 8-week, 10-week, 16-week, whatever length that you're modifying it to. And if you're utilizing some pre-built templates, either in design process or in the courses themselves, it'll allow you to be a lot faster and a lot more efficient. And so again, I kind of want to toss this out to everybody and see what some feedback that Valerie gets here. For any of these that are on here, are any of you seeing this utilized in the process that you're using presently? Or is it more of a haphazard or very stretched out approach? Right. Well, the last thing I want to say before I move on to this is this last little one at the bottom here. You don't have to storyboard. Some people believe that the storyboard design lives and dies by a storyboard. I'll probably make a lot of people mad when I say that you don't have to storyboard at all. Storyboard what makes sense, and we'll talk about that a little more too. But do the things, and this is what we'll talk about. Do the things that make sense. Do the things with a structure, and your life will be a lot easier. So, what I encourage you to do is to think like an architect. And when I say that, you're building a house, the house is the course. So if you approach it from backwards design, starting with your outcomes first. Again, don't take the textbook and just, divide the textbook into the number of weeks that of course you're trying to build, because there may be items in there that have absolutely nothing to do with the outcomes that you're doing for your course. So if you identify those outcomes first, build backwards from there, you can align your assessments and your activities and your readings all to show mastery of those outcomes. The content will support those outcomes. Think of it like I said here in this little graphic here. You're going to identify the pieces of the puzzle that all fit together to match up to those learning outcomes to show mastery, and then build it. It seems very simple. Some people will say it's too simple, and I'm going to tell you it's not, and I'll show you how to do that. So, but you need to start first and think like an architect with the essential components of what's important to your build. And then essentially you want to design for efficiency. And I say create it once, and then you can use it often. So, as you're looking at this, you want to make sure that you have an effective structure for your course. It's consistent and a good navigation for students right from the get-go to know what they're doing from course to course. You want to have content blocks, meaning here's maybe some readings, here are some activities, here are some assessments. So that way there's a navigation and a flow to the content. Maybe they're reading, learning, doing, that type of structure. You want it standardized, but yet flexible. So I'm by all means not advocating a certain structure for every course. I know that I have some courses that I teach myself that are pre-made courses for me. And when I get in there, I know even if it's one I've never taught, it's going to be exactly the same as the last one I taught, even if it's a different discipline, because they have the exact same structure in every course. I don't believe that works for different disciplines. I think that it's up to the faculty to show that expertise with how something can be done, how something can be achieved. It's how you want to structure it to make it flexible enough, but yet consistent where the student has an existing and standardized learning experience to help them be successful. So again, with that structure, I say lather, rinse, repeat, because I use that joke to say you want to build that one, you have that template, and then you can repeat it when you're doing other ones. Maybe if it's the same program, especially in the same program, because you're creating that consistency and the way that the student's going to learn and take mastery. But again, make sure you're adapting as you needed, because you shouldn't have, in my opinion, a one size fits all for online learning is just not going to create an engaging learning environment for students. And then again, here are the templates. So first before I talk about this, I want to toss this out there, Valerie, and say to everybody, the schools to which you either teach or that you work for, are they using pre-made templates for either their courses or their programs? And I mean, not just they're giving you a home page and then you're like, set loose to do it. I'm talking a structured, even doesn't have to be the content, but is there a format for the layout of what they expect, for accessibility, all that type of thing? How many people do we see it, a high level, low level? What do you kind of see in there, Valerie? We getting yeses,
Yeah,
nos?
you're that some people had mentioned templates earlier.
Mhm,
You got a good crowd here that was with you on the
mhm,
backward design. You got a
mhm.
few that, there's always the sort of when reality hits, like there's ideally this is what we do, but
Right.
we spend a lot of time in reality where it's like, oh my gosh, I have to build the plane as I'm flying kind of thing. But yeah, a
Yes.
lot of people are having templates.
Mhm.
Um, some are like, no, they're not like official, but we have like probably the design team, I'm assuming from the way it was written, have their
Right.
own like, sort of library of things. So
Well, that's good. That's
yeah,
that's
and some
what I
comments
see
about
a lot too.
accessibility, which is something I know
Hmm.
you love.
Yep.
A
Yeah,
couple
that's
people
near and dear to
mentioned
me.
about making sure that
Yeah.
they have that they're building things with
Yeah.
that in mind.
Well, that's exciting to me to see that more and more are embracing the use of templates, because I see in the ones in the clients that we work with, it could be, yep, we have a pre-made one. This is the one we use for our institution or our program. To nope, here's a homepage that we hope they use, and we don't have anything, and we go from there. So, um, the value of the template is one of the essential parts, one of the pieces of the puzzle pie, whatever you want to call it, for the time saving situation. Because instead of starting from scratch I mean, faculty, and even when you work with an instructional designer, the faculty are pressed for time. Let's be honest. They're doing a lot. They're struggling to do things. Some are very comfortable with design. Some are, it's put upon them and they don't feel comfortable with it, and they have problems. So the template helps alleviate a lot of that stress to at least get started with. So you can have standardized syllabus, maybe rubrics, your course layout is the same. You're able to take plug and play, so you can take those assessments and put them in there. Um, it allows you to deploy it quickly. It allows you to replicate it quickly if you're trying to do that. And it addresses a lot of those problems, with the big one being accessibility, as we know is going to be an issue in a year or so, for everyone to address. So it allows you to address those problems in advance, being proactive versus reactive. And again, on the bottom here, save storyboarding for your interactive activities or the videos. Not everybody has those integrations into their courses. Again, everybody's different. Everybody has a different budget. Everybody has a different expectation, but save the time for those types of things, doing those interactive activities for storyboarding. Don't waste your time doing it for a whole course. And then the next thing we're going to talk about too with some of this is creating content organizers to match it. And what do I say when I mean that? I'm going to show you in a minute. But you want create an organizer or a template that matches your course template. Will, one, not only increase your speed, but it will increase your accuracy of what you're putting in there. So we'll move ahead here a little bit.
Yeah,
So the
I'll
first
just
one,
pause you for
templates.
1 second.
Yes.
You got some good feedback, and you'll be very
Cool.
happy to hear that at least where Francis is, that they now have master rubrics that they pop
Awesome.
in there so that people, allow the faculty.
Faculty
Um,
struggle with that. Rubrics can be hard. I mean,
yeah,
yes, AI is our new friend to help us create rubrics. And if you're not using AI to help you create a rubric, I suggest you do, because it's a great tool. But yes, doing that, and then again, that consistency helps students understand what the expectation is for when they're working on things, especially if you have them programic, that apply to them. So again, my whole pitch today was how we're going to save you time. um, this will save you time. And this might look, it should be very simple, but it will save you time in the effect that it allows you to brainstorm an entire course. And I started this derived from something I use myself when I created my own courses for the ones I teach. I used to sit down and I have a legal pad and I would write things down. I was making lines and doing all this, and I would explain it to people, and they're like, hey, my IDs, write that down, what we're doing, so we can use this. So what this is you put and I'll show you an example next, but this tool allows you to look holistically at the whole entire course. How you could, it doesn't have, this is not a finished map necessarily, but how you could achieve the outcomes. So you put your outcomes in there. How are some things you might do to assess it? What are some chapters or OER resources that you use? What topics are important to achieve those outcomes? Maybe it'll help you then put the order in. But again, you can go beyond that and say, okay, if these are the types of assessments, okay, this is how I might lay this out. Oh, I'm going to want to talk about this in my discussion. This is a case study. Ooh, here I can do a scenario. Ooh, this is going to be, I'm going to scaffold this project in weeks 2, 6, and 10. How are you going to do it? So it allows you literally to sit there and visualize easily an entire course. Some people think I oversimplify this. I will tell you from my own experience that I have given this exact thing for mine, filled it out, sent it to 2 different deans, and said, here's the course that I'm looking to do. Because again, no one likes rework. Rework wastes time. Everyone has limited time. So if you can take this, submit it to the dean. This is the course that I'm looking at. This is the structure of how I'm doing it. Oh, that looks great. Okay, maybe we want to do this, I think you should do this topic here, topic there. Making those small adjustments here at this level is such a big saver on the back end, because then once you get this approved, or you do this, or you show this to your ID, or you even work with this yourself, the building process from there is so much faster. So as we look here's one that I have filled out that just so you can kind of see kind of how this works out. This one's for just a 6-week course. It's a hybrid one. They've got in classes, 2, 4, 6. So again, on the left, I have, here's all the outcomes for this. How am I going to assess it? Okay, this one's just discussions. Okay, this one's a project. This one's, again, aligning up those mastery items that you're going to do. here's the textbook. How am I going to do it? This one has a textbook. It's not necessarily OER for everything. So again, where are the chapters that I'm using and how are they broken up and how do they again link back to those learning outcomes? Again, you're eliminating the fluff, you're eliminating the extra nonsense topics that we may cover. But the part that I find most helpful, and especially when you're working with an ID to help you kind of break it down, and that's the other nice thing. You do this top part, and if you have an ID that's helping you, they can help you with the bottom part because you've already got the structure there. So here again are some possible assessments and discussion topics and things that we're going to do in class for here. So you can use it for hybrid, you can use it for online, you could use it, I suppose, if you wanted to for on ground. But it makes it very simple to literally, I mean, again, I'm not trying to understate this, but I have done an entire class. Of course, I'm used to using my own template, which would make sense, in an entire weekend with all this structure, because then you just have to build it because it takes out the fluff and it builds in the structure. So I'm assuming, Valerie, you might have, if anyone have any questions or anything. And at the end of this, if anybody wants this, email me and I'll send you a blank copy of the template.
I must have like had that look like there's a
Yeah.
question. There's a question. Yeah, actually Kayla was asking, she wanted to confirm, is this before your course planning phase or instead of a course planning sort of map?
I like to use it either right at the beginning, close to a kickoff, depends on who's there, or at least communicate it with the subject matter expert, faculty, whomever, and I like to get the chair involved there. So again, you're not having a surprise. If the chair says, well, we have to have a project for this course, and I'm really adamant that it has to be scaffolded into these different weeks, know it now. Don't know it after you've done the whole planning phase and you have to redo it. So yes, it's at the beginning phase. And again, it's not considered, we work with a lot of clients that have formal mapping. I'm not advocating this as a replacement for formal mapping. I'm advocating this as a tool for you to visualize the course and then do the mapping and then, create the full structure and everything you need to do there. And if you get this all done, they approve it, that's easy to move over. You can just put a split screen and copy paste right into your regular map and put that detail in there. So yes, it's a planning tool. That's how I visualize it. And some people, I've had some that have used it throughout the whole process because they just literally built it out, put all the detail in there, and then we could build from it. But it's a nice way, especially when you can't, the worst thing you want to have is to get to the end of a course and somebody's reviewing it and they come back to you and say, I don't see where you demonstrated the marketing mix and how to use it. Where are you doing that?
Yeah.
Oh, let me show you. Here's my handy little, it's right here. It's the project. It's in week 1, 3, 4, and 6. So it allows you to make sure that you're achieving all those outcomes, but it allows you to do it in a faster and smarter way. And you might find out, which is again, I advocate print it out, do it in paper on a clipboard. I sit in a lazy boy with a pencil and do it because I make, no, I don't like that. No, that's not going to work. Oh, okay, change this out. So it allows you to literally be a brainstorming tool, and that's my intent with the scope of this. Do we have any other questions before
Yeah,
I move on there?
you've converted them. You have lots of requests for copies of the template, which you have graciously said we'll make
Yes.
sure we get that out to people.
Yep.
We will make that
Mhm.
happen. One other just point of clarification, because I know you're talking a lot about courses that you're kind of thinking through. We had a
Mhm.
question: at what point do you list the learning objectives so that the faculty or the SME knows what and how to build on to the topics? Um,
Hopefully
so
that's
looking
right
at
from the
it, kind of
get-go.
looking at it from the other side.
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes you don't have that. Sometimes you don't, if you're given one that maybe it's a brand new program. We're seeing a lot of institutions that are starting brand new programs from scratch. You might not have this yet, that depth of outcomes. Following again that backwards design philosophy, always start with the outcomes because it's kind of like your destination on a trip. If you don't know where you're going, you have no idea how to get there. You'll end up, through Missouri, California. If you were going to Florida, your end up was Florida, but you ended up out west. You want to be able to start with that because that is the core foundation. And hopefully, when you have these meetings and if you're working on design process, if you know they exist, make sure someone has given you the course description and the course outcomes because those are the two things that you need to start to spin backwards and create all this. So, good
Right.
question.
Yeah, good. There's lots of good, and there's people helping one another in the chat. So I encourage people,
Awesome.
at the
Love
end of
that.
this, if it's a little too much going on listening and monitoring the chat, you can always save this chat at the end, so you could go back and you could kind of read through it, because as usual, we have a helpful group here, and some people are like, "Oh, we have our SMEs brainstorm this way, and we whatever." So I
Yep.
encourage people to go back later and look at that.
And if
But yeah,
anyone forgets anything, contact Valerie. If what was her, you can get a hold of me. I'm happy
exactly.
to. I like it. I'm a community of learners. I like to be able to share knowledge, and I learn from everybody else. And I'm a big believer in continual improvement. So I also, if you have good things that your program does, I'd love to hear it because I love a good way. There's always So the second phase of that, so after you've done your brainstorming template, and again, one of my tips when I talked about earlier for designing was to design to the template. Don't storyboard it. And what do I mean there? So this is an example of, I call this a content organizer. And this matches a client's layout for their particular course. So as they go into module 1 or week 1 or whatever you want to call it, these are all the key areas in that entire week. Again, it allows the instructor to think holistically. You don't get to the end and suddenly realize you didn't write any of your overviews, or you don't have any of your mapping done, or, oh, I forgot that rubric, or here's this really great graphic I want to have. Again, you're looking holistically. So it allows you then, and for all my instructional designer friends on here, by following this and having them write it in student-facing language, you can load the shell right from this super fast. You don't have to try to figure out what somebody's intent was. You can provide feedback to them there. Say, hey, we can work with you. Um, maybe there's something that the overview is 2 sentences. Can we, how can I help you make this a little bit longer to get the student a little more excited about what they're doing? But again, my suggestion is that you have an organizer that matches the layout of your template that your school has had to make it easy and efficient for each week. Sometimes things don't apply. Maybe there's not an assignment in that week. Maybe there's a project, maybe there's something else. But this allows you to at least say, hey, okay, this is the stuff I need to do. And it allows you to have a space at the end for an instructor guide, which, as we know, nothing's worse than going into a course you have not designed blind and not know what's going on. So it allows you to add a space there too. Um, so what are those tools? How are we gonna, okay, we've done this now, we've got this structure, we've got all the tools in place, how are we gonna do it? So we're gonna work smarter and not harder. And first, I would be naive to say that not to use AI. That's all I'm saying there. But the trick is, how do you use it? I'm not advocating, and I have seen one. I've done this enough and long enough that I have one I teach for that I know the entire one was created with AI without faculty input. I didn't like it. It was, someone might say, oh, this is great, but you could just tell the cadence, the structure, the everything there. It was just use AI as a supplement to your own brain, to your own ideas. Allow it to be your friend to help you with the things that you need creation with. Maybe it's rubrics. Maybe it's discussion board prompts. Use it as your brainstorming friend. Use it for the weekly overviews. Use it for the things that don't necessarily require your faculty knowledge and expertise, but just topics. Um, then being able to automate, how can you automate grading, feedback, competency release if that's important to your process in your school. And then what types of activities can you use to create an engaging learning environment that maybe is something instead of you yourself preaching from the pulpit on a topic. What other ways that can you create an engaging learning environment? So we're seeing more, storyline, rise, H5P, all those types of tools that are really becoming a big part of the online learning environment. So again, we want to look at collaboration. Anything that you're trying to do, if you have a buddy, if you have a peer, if you have an instructional designer, if you have anyone that is helping you, instead of doing it alone, obviously collaborating together is going to increase that speed and probably that quality at the end. You've got someone that can look it over. If it's an instructional designer, they're going to guide you on some best practices. They're going to guide you on maybe some things that they've tried. they might even challenge you on some things. And I know some faculty does not like to be challenged with what they're suggesting for a course, but maybe it's accessibility, maybe it's an inclusivity aspect that they're going to bring up, and they're going to encourage you to maybe think outside the box a little bit. Use your other faculty as peer review, and doing all these types of things and the structure and the strategies we've used there are going to streamline your revision cycles in the end if you have to do any of that. So I want to talk about OER and doing that. Are a lot of you kind of hear another one to throw out there? Use of OER, it's growing, obviously. We see it. I mean, there's obviously reasons for it. For the faculty and instructional designers here, are you still seeing a lot of text-based design, or are you seeing more OER coming up? Potluck? Yeah.
You got kind of a mixed bag, kind of a thing, probably what you would expect. You've got
Yep.
some that are saying more text, more OER, depends.
Yep.
We've got one that says
Depends on the
about
discipline.
40% OER. Yeah, that's kind of
Yeah.
what I'm feeling here.
Yeah.
Still a lot of text moving in that direction.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think there's definitely
There
we're
is
maybe not quite there yet, but yeah.
yeah, there's an advantage to it because you have some ready-made content. You don't have to necessarily do that because as I'm seeing, OER is getting even more robust than just a textbook. It might be other resources that you're using, test banks, whatever, more free, like a regular standard text content. But you're able then to utilize that to not have to create content yourself, making it a little faster. Um, Maybe there's past materials from other courses. Maybe this ran 5 years ago, and there might be something in there that you can use as a starter. Um, Maybe you're using past materials. God, I did this certain type of project and everybody loved it. I'm going to replicate that again to match this type of thing. So don't feel you need to start from scratch. And then obviously there's different ones. If you're using Canvas, you might have Creative Commons, where you have licensing options there to take something that's already ready made. If you're maybe something in continuing education that's not for credit type thing, where you might be able to adapt some of those. But it can give you a lot of flexibility, speed, and the ability to have high quality without suffering the long lead time. So
Yeah, and you had a really Ashley had an interesting question, but also I think concept here. She was saying, would the adoption of OER depend on your organizational goals and how you differentiate your offerings from other institutions? I think that's a really
I like
fascinating.
that.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
I think that is a really good distinction and argument for OER because we see a lot of I know why people use a publisher. I'm not a big fan of using a lot of publisher resources and going to Connect and using all those types of things. I'm probably going to get a lot of people mad at me saying that, but I'm going to say it anyways. And the reason I say that is your ABC university, who has adopted it and uses all this, goes to XYZ university, has done the same thing. And your course is the same as that. You have not put any distinction that is to your specific target demographic for yours, the needs of your specific student body. There's a lot of gaps with doing that. So obviously you could have that with somewhat with OER depending on how deep you get into there. But to Ashley's exact point, I like to say that you shouldn't teach to the text or to the content. Your content should support what you're trying to teach and the outcomes that you're trying to achieve. So if you can use it to support, hopefully it's not, designing it to, plus then you don't have all those massive, revisions every time they go to a different edition and having to mess with it every time or all those types of things. So this is kind of just a high level overview of how you can do a development workflow and have it be time saving. And again, talking about those templates, talking about those organizers, I really want to stress the importance of having a structure. You need to have a structure. You need to have the structure. You need to have the milestones. You need to have the due dates, accountability, and the workflow to keep going through there. So this just reinforces kind of what we're talking about there. You're going to outline your key objectives. You're going to identify then what your existing resources and templates that you're going to use. Do you have something from an existing course? Do you have an organizer and a brainstorming template to use to create that structure that you know you're going to cover? Then you're going to build some of those items right within the LMS, start that construction. Add the interactive elements. How can you create something that supports the learning that presents something in a different manner? And I won't go down that rabbit hole for interactive elements, but just more of, how are you going to use something? Say it's supply chain economics. That could be an overwhelming thing. Maybe you can make an interactive element, or your instructional designer can put it in there to illustrate that in a new way for students to learn. And then the ultra important review and finalize it. So review, check twice, and then launch it. But you want to try to make sure that you are covering all your bases before you're moving on to something else. And then the quick wins. Okay, what can you do right away? What are you going to take? So these are obviously, hopefully, to everyone, practical tips that you can all use right away. Even small changes can make a big difference in the back end with the time and your approach, your level of stress, your level of frustration. So with some of these, there are some things that you can do right now. You can use a template instead of trying to build something randomly from scratch without anything or a big, huge storyboard. Use AI where it makes sense, where it makes it smarter for you, where it takes off some of that. Maybe it's some just helps you filter out some ideas you have rolling around your head. Use those checklists to kind of keep them on track, and then obviously establish milestones and stick to them. I know sometimes, oh, it doesn't run until spring of 26. I don't need to do it right now. All of a sudden it's December and you're not done. So work with them. Know that everyone who is trying to push you along to do that they have your best interest in heart to stick to those. So I guess I want to throw out one last thing, and this kind of takes us to the discussion, that open discussion there at the end, Valerie, is, what does everybody think that they can implement now that they can use to shorten this process? Or the other two questions I've got, we'll just open up the floor, Valerie. What are some of your biggest challenges? What strategies you're going to try? I don't know. I lost track of time. How much time do we have left here
Oh,
to,
you're good. You
am I
got you
good?
got you got 18 minutes. Come on.
Oh, there we go. We got
You
lots of
got
stuff to
plenty of
talk
time.
about.
Plenty of time.
Yeah,
We can talk about all
yeah.
kind of stuff.
Can I say something?
Of
Mhm.
course.
Um, I think you provided some good confirmation and validation about really stressing the use of the templates that you have and
Mhm.
making it. I mean, I already do that. We make it standard, but sometimes we have subject matter experts and things like that, and we tell them we have templates, but then you get blanks. You get blank slides or something like that, but like enforcing it, and I think some of it is people get intimidated from what they see. I don't know where to plug things in or something like that. But I think
Yep.
just making it easier, palatable, and just enforcing it as the part of the process of using the templates. Yeah, that's what I got out of it.
Sometimes it's just the context. They don't
Yeah.
understand that, you're forcing me to do this. Well, no, but I promise, if you give them the context or the background as to why it would help, we had that when we first started using it for one, and we never make it mandatory because I've had a SME that's done it on post-it notes, literally in their room, their courses on post-it notes, and we've had to adapt from there. But the ones that embraced it and tried it, and again, it's not meant to be replace a formal map. That's not, it's a scribble pad essentially of your ideas to take it in there. But yeah.
Yeah. I would add if I can, find your champion. Find
Yeah.
that other person you worked with, because peer pressure works not just on students.
Yeah.
Just gonna say.
That's true. That's true. And we had
Uh,
one that when they came back and they said, "Hey, do you have that template again? Can we use that brainstorming? That was really great." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah."
yeah.
So not to, force the Kool-Aid, but it does
No,
work.
no, no. And
Mhm.
nothing wrong with post-its, as Angela pointed out. She starts with post-it notes, and so do I. So
Yeah.
we're not hating on the sticky
We
notes.
are
We're
not
not
hating on Post-its, and I tell you, at the end of that class, it was literally And he would take screenshots of the Post-its and we would build from there. And it was a good structured course. It
And
took a
yeah.
lot of hand holding, but we got there. But I want to toss out, what does everybody think of my opinions on storyboards? Does everyone think that I'm crazy or that no?
Well, no. Well, if people answer that, and then we're going to come back because we do have another question. You
Great.
got an agreement.
Mhm.
And would you mind pronouncing your name for me? Is it Tanasha? Tanasha?
It's Tanasha.
Tanasha.
Yeah.
I said it right in my head and then I said it wrong when I went to say it. So yay me. Yay me.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's complicated. I mean, it's a, there's never a one size fits all. It's like teaching. There's not a one size fits all how you teach something. There's not a one size fits all how do you do it. But I know that
Yeah.
there is a lot of pressure to try to do things quickly and how to make it so it's not stressful for the faculty, the instructional designer, maybe the organization, if they need to suddenly the last minute have to get something to run. So if you can implement some processes that help take away that stress, I mean, that in itself puts you way ahead.
Yeah. And you have general agreement with that. Most are,
Mhm.
it depends or, whatever. Some people say, if it works for you. I like, some people like to do it for themselves. Some people say they do it in their heads. They don't necessarily write it down. I think we all do that probably. I do anyway. I'm a big walker and thinker and whatever. Depends on the experience of the writer. So yeah, there's a lot of variability here. Um, there's some pushback. Let's see, Ashley gave us some detail here. Some pushback to providing overviews for shared instructional materials and making connections to assessment in our templates. Okay, so she's moved on to a question here. How can you best communicate the value of these best practices and mitigate some of the faculty's sentiment that these are college students and they should be able to figure it out themselves, especially when we encourage communicating the meaningfulness or importance of those activities? So yeah,
Yeah.
I think the earlier question, which we'll come back to, also, faculty, darn, if y'all didn't have to deal with faculty, it sounds like your lives would be easier.
Yeah. And it's, you get some of this, well, that's my academic freedom. Well, yes, that's with the content, but we all drive a car. The car has to have wheels and the body. But when you order your car from somewhere, you're picking your type of finish, you're picking the color, those are the academic freedom excellence points that they need to do. I go back to what Valerie said before, you need a champion. You need someone there that, the peer pressure to advocate for that. And I just try to provide, I don't know sometimes if I'm just really good at kind of explaining things to people. Maybe I have a soothing Midwestern tone. I don't know. I've been told it's very Michigan. So I apologize to anyone it's grading. But I- if you're able to, they have to know the why. It's like explaining things to you. Well, why? Your 3-year-old that keeps saying, why, why does this make sense? Look at this example here. And even if you as instructional designer can take some of that brainstorming template, plunk pieces into it, put the outcomes in there for them. Hey, as I was, going over your course, Dr. Jones, I thought of these little ideas to do this and how it can save them, the biggest thing that I see that the light bulb moment, if you will, is the time saving aspect to it. It say faculty don't have time. So if you can say, hey, I can save you time if you use this. And if you use this, I can help you as an instructional designer because I've got the context kind of what you're trying to do. I can maybe help create some of these initial assessments for you. And then we can get together, brainstorm and build them out and make them count how you are trying to do it. But like you said, as faculty, we have so many things in our head. We have so many ideas of things we want to try. Just getting it down there and working it out. But it's the why behind what you're trying to get them to do. If you can communicate that well, they usually have better buy-in.
Yeah, and that's actually a nice segue back to the earlier question from Francis, which is, you've talked a little bit about this, but we can dig into it a little more, I think. Um, Can you talk more about the revision process that faculty have a bad habit of not keeping track of the changes they make? So yeah, we all, in the moment you're fixing stuff and whatever, but then that never makes it back into the, you lose all of that beautiful
Well,
progress.
my first argument to that is the master course. You need a master shell. You maintain the master, you make those changes in the master.
Yeah.
I would say that you could even use that brainstorming template just to make notes of changes. If you say, this discussion was a big bomb, it didn't work, I'm going to change it. I need to do this. Or if you have the structure and say, okay, in week 6, this assignment needed more clarity or more instruction, I added this. You could put it in there to make sure so when at the end of that course to go back to make those changes. But not everybody has a master. I always advocate for that. If you can have a master of anything, even if your institution doesn't have master courses, if they will allow you to have a sandbox of your course that you can maintain as your own personal master, then you can go back, use those notes you've had maybe in that template or in the organizer, one of those two, and you can then make those changes. So then when you run it again, you don't have to go back to the old one that you did and look at what you did to try to copy it over. But that's a good question.
Yeah. Yeah. I was wondering if anybody had a process for that, because I'm more from the workforce side of things, and we do actually have some processes for this type of thing.
Yeah.
So I was
We've
curious.
used
I was gonna,
revision checklists if somebody has a master and they're saying, hey, we're going to
yeah,
maintain these, and we went through and we need to make these, and then, kind of like a junior map where you would do that. But if it's something you're maintaining on your own, that's obviously a more complicated process because you don't have that support structure.
yeah, yeah.
So yeah,
We invite people to debriefs after. Now I know in the semester, everybody's just like, well, we're done. Got the grades in, we're done. But if you can find ways, sometimes food helps. To invite people in, I think to debrief some of this and get some of that while it's fresh. Because they forget, and then they go back the next semester and start teaching the class, and they use their new stuff, but they forgot they did tell everybody else that there was new stuff. So,
well, and sometimes you
so I
think your
like
stuff
that.
was fine, but maybe
Yeah,
the students didn't. So even getting that, everyone has a formal process that they get evaluated for the course. Um, but I always do like a midpoint, check in, what's your checking your temperature to kind of get some initial feedback on, did this instructions make sense? Do you think that just something simple? Again, students don't have a lot of time either, but just get that good feedback that allows you to make the changes that you might, we all think that we're infallible whenever we design something and our explanations are perfect, or they're adults, they should figure it out. Well, maybe they needed a little more context, maybe they needed a little more explanation. If it's an assignment you're getting 50 questions on every time you teach it, you might want to edit it.
yeah. I wonder, do you use, or does anybody here use, like an end of course sort of uh check in to say, hey, were there asking them, actually just reaching out and asking them that, were there any modules in this that you changed because you blah blah blah, or were there certain things that you felt didn't work as well as you'd like? Or I'm just wondering if anybody like actively asks for feedback of that kind of thing. Sherry says we have a peer review core. Ooh, that sounds fun. That sounds exciting. Sounds like they should have a
Mhm.
uniform. That can be consulted if you want your course checked for whatever purpose. Oh, that's really nice. Um, and Dr. Keller says that they do use a post-session review form. Faculty complete it if they need a change in their course. Yeah, that's again to your point, Sheila. If they know they need to change the course.
They know they need to
Um,
do it.
yeah, yeah.
But
So yeah, so we get some feedback on that. That's great.
that's a nice benefit if you've been able to utilize some of these things to get the content and the course done sooner, that you have time before it launches. You have
Yeah,
that ability then to pull in and maybe utilize a peer review process and hey, have some other faculty, does this make sense? As we look at it. I mean, we edit to what we think we see, not what sometimes something really is. That's why that I always have someone, even doing this, hey, look at my presentation. Did I miss something? Did it make sense? Does it
yeah.
make sense to you? So Otherwise,
Yeah,
they're always good.
and to Cindy's point, yeah, sometimes it's a resource issue. There's only 3 of them in her group, so yeah.
Well,
So
exactly.
there
And
may
that's
not
a
be the
big
capacity for
problem.
too much of that. Yeah.
Yes, you're one person trying to, do the work of 10. And that makes it challenging. Where again, if you can integrate steps and templates and processes that help them be smarter, helps you be smarter, and more efficient, and then you can do the work of 20 as it may appear.
Yeah. And yeah, Kara who said that I'm the only one. And I feel like a lot of it,
Yeah,
falls through the
I hear a
cracks
lot of
because
that. Yes.
there's only so much we can each do. But
Mhm.
we got about five minutes left before the top of the hour. So I'm just going to pause for a second to thank everybody. You've gotten lots of thank yous. A few people had to run a few minutes early, but you
Mhm.
got lots of thank yous. And so I think I'm just looking to make sure that I didn't miss a question. But feel free if anybody has any other questions.
Yeah.
And as Tanasha
And
did, please unmute yourself. We're friendly here. We're not
we're
gonna
friendly.
we're not gonna
And if you have
we're not gonna yell
questions,
at
if
you
you
if you
want that
unmute.
template, my email is there at the bottom. Shoot me an email and I'll send you the template.
Perfect. And if you don't mind, just send it over to me, and that way, if anybody reaches out to me afterwards, I'll be happy to send it over to
I will do
people.
that.
So, all right. Well, I want to thank everybody for attending today, and especially thank Sheila for coming back. And this replay, I didn't formally ask you, but since you let me post the last one, I'm going to assume that Sheila's going to say,
Yeah.
yes, this will be available for replay for all of you.
Yep.
So if you found it helpful, please share it with share it. I'll let everybody know when the replay is up on USDLA.tv. Which of course you will know because you all went there and subscribed. I have no doubt. But we'll get that up there as quickly as we can. And again, I want to thank all of you for being with me. I always thank the future guests because I know there's a lot of people out there watching the replay in the future. So I talk to you guys too. Hello, future people. And a huge thank you to Sheila, as always, for being with us today. I'm going to stop the recording in a moment, but I will not log off immediately. So if anybody wants to hang out for a minute, network a bit, or has any questions about USDLA or anything else, I'm happy to stay on with you. But thank you all so much. I hope you have a great weekend.
Thank you.